Hello everyone, it's Shannon here for Pink Fresh Studio. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create these watercolored butterflies. They're actually really easy to make, and then we'll add them to this slimline card with a beautiful sky blended background. We're going to start with the Butterflies stamp set. This set has a matching die as well as matching stencils. We will not be using the stencils today because we're going to be watercoloring them. I also am going to use a piece of Bristol smooth paper. This paper is a little bit different than regular cardstock or watercolor paper. It's very smooth and it's going to allow our watercolor to really move and glide over the surface very easily. I am going to do some heat embossing, so I applied anti-static powder, and now I'm going to ink up the stamp first in detail black. I want these to be embossed, but I want them to be black. I could definitely use black embossing powder, but I'm just going to show you this little trick in case you don't have black embossing powder. So I first stamped it in the detail black, then I cleaned my stamp, and now I'm going to ink it up in VersaMark ink, which is an embossing ink. After I inked it up, I just stamped right over those black stamped butterflies, and now they have a layer of embossing ink on top of them, which will allow our clear embossing powder to stick to it. So I'm just pouring on my clear embossing powder, and after I heat set this, these embossed areas, these heat embossed areas will act as a resist to our watercolor, and they'll stay nice and clean and black. So now here I'm just heat setting with my heat tool. You can really easily see how it changes and gets nice and glossy. So now that those butterflies are heat set, we're ready to watercolor them. I am using Tombow dual brush pens for watercoloring. I'm just coloring directly over the butterfly with the marker, and I'm using 5 colors, I'm going to do kind of like a ombre or a gradient. So I started with a purple, pink, and I'm onto a red, then I'll do an orange, and I'll finish up here with the yellow. And this goes really fast, and I'm not coloring all the way to the edge because I want some of my color to kind of bleed and move out there. I also am going to spray some water on here and use a rocket air blower to further move the color. So here's that rocket air blower. I'm just blowing it down. It's just squeezing it, it's pushing out some air and moving that watercolor a little bit more. You can also use a brush to move it around a little bit, but I like the little bit looser look, the kind of unpolished look of the air, just blowing it. I think that looks kind of cooler. So I let that dry. Now I'm ready to just repeat this process for this other butterfly here, again using all 5 of my colors, just coloring really quickly onto the butterfly, spritzing with some water to get that ink activated, and then using my air blower to kind of blow it around, or my brush to move it around a little bit. I'm going to set those aside now to dry, and after they're fully dried, which you can see they are here, I'm ready to color the bodies. So I have one more Tombow dual brush pen here. This is a black one, and I'm just going to really quickly color in the bodies of these 2 butterflies. And once I finish with these bodies, I'm ready to die cut these butterflies out. So I have the butterflies die, the matching die here. I'm just going to line up the die to the butterflies. Just like the stamp set, the butterflies are on one large stamp. The die is, for both these butterflies, is one large die. I really love this concept. It makes creating your images for your cards so quick and easy. And I did off camera create another set of those butterflies. We're now going to move on to our sentiments. I have the Perfect Sentiment stamp set here. I am going to stamp it onto some white cardstock. I did apply some anti-static powder because I am going to do that kind of black embossed look again. So I first stamped these sentiments in the detail black. After I stamped them, I cleaned my stamp, and now I'm going to ink it up here in VersaMark ink. So after I ink up all those sentiments, I'll stamp those as well. And these sentiments, this is, if you're not familiar with the set, it's really cool. Just like the butterfly, all these sentiments are on one large stamp. So after you stamp them and die cut them, you have a whole bunch of sentiments to choose from and use in your card making. And I, again, think that's just so handy and awesome to have. I just store the leftover sentiments in the bag of for the stamp as itself, so they're always handy and ready to go. So after I poured on some clear embossing powder, I then heat set with my heat tool. So now I'm ready to die cut these out. So I'm going to use the Perfect Sentiments die. Again, this one large die cuts all the sentiments out. So I'm just going to line it up here carefully, grab a couple pieces of micro pour tape to hold that die in place as I run it through my die cutting machine. So I ran it through and I'm ready. I've die cut all of my sentiments. I'm actually only going to use the sending hugs for this card, but again, like I said, I'll save save all those sentiments for other cards. So I have a Slimline card base here, and I'm going to ink blend over this card base with the Cloud Builder stencil, and I am using soft violet ink for this background. I'm just positioning the kind of cloud. I'm using the kind of bigger cloud side over this card front and just ink blending really quickly with this ink to create this really pretty but super easy background. I don't want it to be too busy or too colorful because we have those butterflies. I don't want to take anything or distract too much from those butterflies. So I'm just finishing up here. Going to ink blend one more kind of row of clouds, and then I'll ink blend a little bit at the very bottom with a little bit more of that soft violet. Okay, so we are now ready to kind of put this together. I'm going to arrange my butterflies here and my sentiment, kind of get it figured out how I want them to all fit together. And once I get them all arranged, I'll then grab some pieces of micropore tape to hold these butterflies in place. Because as you can see here, some of the butterflies have kind of bits of their wings hanging off of the card base, and I want to trim those off. So I've used the tape just to temporarily hold those die cuts in place, and then I'll grab my pair of scissors and quickly just trim off any of that overhang. I'm doing it now before I actually adhere the butterflies onto my card front, because I'm going to adhere them on with foam tape, and it's a bit difficult to adhere them on with that foam tape and then trim them because of that dimension. So after I've trimmed off the overhang, I'll grab my foam adhesive, add it to the back side of my butterflies, of course remove the backing, and start to stick them down. And I love that little bit of dimension. It adds a little nice shadow underneath the butterflies and makes them kind of pop a little bit more. So I'm finishing up with this last butterfly here, and all we have left really is our sentiment. So once I stick that down, I'll grab the sentiment. I did also add foam adhesive to the back side of that sentiment, so I'll remove the backing on that and stick that right down in that little opening I left for it. And I decided to kind of add a little bit more, or kind of take it up one more notch, and I'm going to add these iridescent drops to the background here just to add a little bit more sparkle and fill in the space a little bit. These are really pretty. They almost look like bubbles, and I think it fits really well. I'll now hold it to the camera so you can get a good look at the finished card. I really love how it turned out. I love these kind of ombre butterflies. They were so easy to make with that really simple kind of blended cloud background, and that shine of those iridescent drops just is the perfect finishing touch. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you have any questions about the products I use, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.